Sheryl Crow, Magic in the Morning. 8:35. Beautiful sunshine out there. These are the kind of mornings I like. The humidity's down and the temperatures are cool. And actually heard a lawnmower, and we won't be hearing those for much longer here this season. We've got Mike Barrett in to talk good policies this morning. Mike, how are we doing?
We are doing well. How are you?
Doing better. We had a good turnout last week as poor Ethan, your little man at home, had been forced to isolate for a while we waited for a test on COVID. And you just let us know what? It was all of second grade, but then what?
I think it was last Wednesday we got noticed that the first grade at the school was in quarantine. And it's like I said, when Ethan tested negative, he asked me, he's like, hey, Dad, can I get something? I'm like, dude, if we set the precedent of giving you something every time you test negative, it's going to be an expensive year.
Yes, it will.
So we're just going to be pleased that it's a negative. How's that?
All right. So let's go back. Last week we talked about a Form 5. You'll have to forgive me. A ton of stuff has gone on.
But you said Form 5. That blows my mind.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I do remember some things.
Wow.
Not many, but. So anyways, let's do a quick recap and maybe a little continuation of that, shall we?
Sure. So last week we talked about how beneficial it can be to have broader or more comprehensive coverage on your personal property. And of course, we talked about a Form 5 for those who have a traditional homeowner policy because they own their home, or via an endorsement on a renter's policy. A lot of companies have added the ability to add special form coverage so that you're out of the realm of broad form coverage, which is named types of losses, which can leave your personal property exposed to losses that aren't covered. So it's very beneficial to have. And it was interesting. Last week we talked about it, and some lightning storms had been coming through. And I actually had a client reach out concerned about their electronics.
Well, I was going to say, I do remember in our conversation, we talked about things like home computers, expensive appliances that are all computerized and stuff like that. But I think what I didn't remember most, I will never be able to own a home unless I win the lottery.
Sure.
I mean, that's just a fact. I realize that. I'm 55. I ain't as dumb as I look. Well, maybe. But I'm a renter. So renters out there think that they may be limited on some of their coverage. So they can be covered as well.
Yeah, and it's actually a very good point that you bring up, Jeff. Is a lot of people who have renter's insurance, or even people who rent, don't even have renter's insurance. They think they can't get it, or if they have it, they think they're really limited on what's available. No, that is not the case. You can really protect yourself with special form personal property on a renter's policy just as well as you could on a regular homeowner. But even further, you start talking about, and actually, let me back up real quick, because last week I was talking about expensive refrigerators, washers, dryers, televisions, all these other electronics. Think about the Nordic tracks of your life. Think about the Pelotons.
I was going to say,
these are all very expensive things that are plugged in. And what could happen to those things? And would a broad form specific named peril policy be enough to cover certain types of loss? No. So a special form policy is very advisable for people who have especially those types of items. Now remember, it's still going to be subject to your policy deductible, whether you have it at 100, 250, 500, 1,000 or higher. But still, to have that coverage is pretty vital. And then furthermore, if you're worried, and we've talked about scheduling personal property in the past, I've talked about the wedding rings and specifically listing jewelry, which is an available option on homeowners policies. But what about specifically listing computers? Did you know that some companies allow you to have special form coverage on computers?
No, but that's nice to know.
It's nice to know. So you're sitting there, got your fresh cup of joe going on your laptop or on your PC or on your tablet or what have you. If, they're computers. You spill the liquid on your device on a regular homeowner policy, you're going to be hard-pressed to find coverage because there's no specific peril that says spilled liquid on my computer. On a special form policy, you would have some coverage, but even better on the computer policy or the computer endorsement is you'd have a smaller deductible, if any deductible would apply to that specific situation. So you may have no deductible or a $100 deductible or a $250 deductible, regardless of what your policy deductible is. So it's giving you better coverage for your computers.
So you mentioned scheduling and those, like you have a very nice titanium, right? Wedding ring there? Is
yes.
That titanium? Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned wedding rings, and we talk about family heirlooms and stuff like that. There are other heirlooms that are passed down, and I want to ask you this in case some of our listeners out there have some. Let's say great-grandpa passed down through the generations here a firearm, like a collectible pistol, a musket, or something. World War I, World War II kind of stuff. Can these things be scheduled as well?
Absolutely. I will be honest, though, and it's been my experience that the specifically list guns can be a little pricey, so you want to make sure you shop around. which is a very advisable thing to do. There's a lot of marketplace for that. I have many in our office that we work with, and there's even companies out there who specifically allow you to list things or schedule them on its very own by itself policy, not even related to your homeowner. And one of the things that I like about one of the companies we work with is rather than having to prove at the time of policy inception the value of the said item, you just have to know that if you have a claim, that's when you have to prove the value of said item.
Okay.
So it kind of puts it on instead of front loading it, it's back loading it, which is not a bad thing. But at some point, you have to prove the value of the items that you are listing. So in the case of a gun, you would need to have an appraisal, which would be relatively easy to do. To have on file somewhere, somehow, in case something happened to that gun.
Okay, let's go back to renter's insurance here because obviously our time is going to dwindle. Renter's insurance policies, I don't have it, but I think I remember, is the average coverage without scheduling roughly around $10,000, and that can be eaten up really quick, right?
It can be, but the cool thing about, when I come to somebody and say, hey, we can insure your home, here's the value we have to insure your home for. Well, I'm coming at them with the value we have estimated that it would take to rebuild that home with like kind of quality. It differs greatly on a renter's policy where you come in and you go, hey, I want to insure my personal property. Okay, what limit do you want? We let you choose absolute. So it can be anywhere from 10 to 15, 20, 25, all upwards. I mean, I've had some renters policies in excess of $100,000. So you get to choose the limit. If you're at a $10,000 contents or renter's insurance policy, you've gotten liability comes with it, you get loss of use that comes with it, you get medical payments to others that comes with it, and many other enhancements that we've talked about. So it's pretty awesome to have. And then if 90% of the time or more, you're going to have a vehicle. So if you have a vehicle, you're insuring that vehicle to be legal to drive in the state. Getting a basic, like a small renter's policy is going to give you a great discount on your auto. So you'll probably offset the cost completely, if not only costing you maybe $10, $15, $20 more over the course of the year to have that policy.
Which is well worth it. And we mentioned the $10,000 can get eaten up because not every apartment out there is furnished when you move in and so on and such forth.
Right.
So you start looking at an $800 sofa, $1,200 bed, and it just keeps adding up.
And remember what I always tell people, what I always tell people, now you can remember, is I don't care if you got the sofa from Aunt Clara. I don't care if you got the table from your parents. I don't care if you got the couch or the recliner from the roadside. It's a replacement cost on contents on these policies. So never for a minute think you don't have it. You do have it, because if it's going to be one of those situations where you have to go replace brand new, that the price is going to go pretty quick.
Well, when you mentioned that recliner on the side of the roadway here, I got to tell you, I'm not so proud that I can't tell the world I'm dirt poor. So I've got a lot of furniture in my place that was set side the road.
But if you had a loss and you need to replace it, guess what? You need to be able to replace it with a replacement cost. So you don't want to undershoot the limit, because now when you pick a limit, if I pick $50,000 limit for my renter's insurance policy and I have a loss and I've only get it to $25,000, well, so be it. They're not going to cut me a check for the rest.
Right.
I'm just saying here is the maximum that I want to make sure I have coverage for if I need it.
Right. So if you lose a TV stand, you lose a sofa, you lose your favorite recliner, it's going to cost you X dollars to replace this, that, and the other thing, and that's what we need to factor. All right. Folks have questions, they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. You can give us a call, 748-5224. Don't forget, we're at our new location, 229 Portland Street, Suite 101 in St. Johnsbury, a.k.a. Dr. Hoppy's old building. You can also find us online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
I like that. And no front line at Barrett Insurance.
No, and yes, while I do have surgical lights in my office, I kept them because I thought they were cool. I do my operations in there, but I don't operate. Does that make sense?
Gosh, it does. Good policies with Magic in the Morning on Tuesdays. Let's go back to the music.